Good afternoon, Sean Childs, fantasyanalyst.substack.com, also on Fantasy SI, writing about fantasy football and baseball and trying to kind of save the show for the baseball season. It's been extremely frustrating. Had a bunch of injuries for outfielders in a few of my main events the last couple of weeks. Even Baum for Philadelphia was hurt. They came back. Baum came back today. I had lucky I had him in lineup, hit some home runs, but I'll just show the main events I'll talk about briefly before I go. I was kind of fading away in the low 80s and stuff like that. Had a little rebound because of offense, at 86 and a half, 88, a 96 and a half, and an 82. 6 weeks ago, you don't have a lot of time to make up ground, and if you have injuries, it's kind of difficult to save the season. But unfortunately, you're at the mercy of how much free agent dollars you have left and who you went to bed with on who you drafted and whoever you have on your roster. So I don't have a lot of money on my teams, but this is the best contender, to get a main event title. Sitting in fifth place, only I guess 8.5 points. Yeah, 8.5 points out of tie for third, and the winners got 111. If they could drop down, maybe 4 points, it'd be pretty competitive. This team, I kind of screwed up the saves. I had three closers for a long time. I let Bednar go. I should have waited one more week. I was down in strikeouts and wins a little bit, so it actually was a good smooth transition if I would have kept a second closer. And this week, I had Will Vest on my team. Really didn't do much the last 2 weeks. Got two saves this week. I think I have both Washington, not Washington, Finnegan from Washington, who is now in Detroit, and Vest on the same team, and I would have got three saves and kind of held serve for the week and make up some ground. But anyways, I'm at so 96 and a half. You could see I'm about 18 RBIs away from passing three teams, and one of the teams in front of me. That takes a couple of hot weeks to get that next level to 778 and 780. I would need one like monster week, but at the same time, some of these teams might be out of it, don't manage so well. I'm only two home runs away from passing 2 points. I could also lose a point the other way, and to gap up with that, I would need a massive week. RBIs, I'm not that far off of two more RBIs, maybe even three. So there's just between those three categories right there. There's 8 points of being a contender. Stolen bases kind of in a gap, hoping to hold serve. I can't really attack that. On the pitching side, strikeouts, like I said, I was behind because of the structure of the run, going 6-3 a lot and just trying to stay alive in ERA and WHIP, and have done well in that. So there's a couple I could make up there, and at the same time, it wins is a 60, 61, 62, 64. Same way, some of these teams that are in that mid range, it might not manage as well. Do I have enough starters on this team to be competitive? I'm not sure. I have to take a look. And saves, I could lose 1, 2, 3 points down in saves just by having what I on my roster. But I could also make up ground. But ideally, the structure of team, I would be better off having two closers and just taking my chances. ERA, pretty good gap there, and WHIP. I'm pretty comfortable there, so I can take some beatings down the stretch here. And I think I'm pretty sure for the team stats for the week, I didn't. I took a zero. I took a chance at like from. Bradley from Detroit, Minnesota, sorry, that he would um, get called up, and he didn't. He struggled in the minors, and that kind of hurt me. So I'm just kind of all right. Team stats for the week. So for the week, kind of a hold serve week so far with 40 runs, 40 RBIs, 11 home runs, 5 steals. Could use a little more steals, but we got the rest of today. The batting average, a little bit of risk. 4 wins, very good. 51 saves. 51 strikeouts. Need a few more. Like I said, those 2 saves would have been big. And I took a chance, and I put this Alvarado guy from the A's, and I thought he would be potentially help. Put Nelson in for double starts. He really didn't do that well overall. Didn't get wins. I have Abbott pitching today. I think he had double starts, and Skeens was a disappointment, and he's a front line. And I think even Woodruff left early. But I got Bradley on my bench. Hopefully gets called up. We got Ruiz. I was holding, Sheehan as extra starter. I have Ruiz. I was holding. I thought I had to make up some steals later on. I'm probably doing okay there. And but lineup, Logan Alhoppy, Drake Baldwin, and I have some weak links in the spots, but I also had a couple players get hot. So but that's what it is. You continue to try to improve the lineup, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to shift over to the waiver wire, and see what the best catchers are and stuff like that. Riley Adams for Washington has done pretty good the last week. 9 for 16. Basically heading into today, and I know there's a high scoring game. I think it was 11-9 on Philadelphia against Washington. Not sure if he played in the game in that particular game, but he's not on any rosters, and I'm not really, in my head's not wrapped around where he's at as far as playing time. But I'm going to go over to there and just to see if they had an injury and see if, and just to make sure I'm on the same page. So Kiebert's been out for a while, so Riley's got a pretty good opportunity. I don't think Drew Millas is anything special there, but so we'll see what happens. Let me just see if it loads up here. Taking a little second, but yeah, so if he's getting regular playing time, trending in the right direction, that would be helpful. But I don't know why this isn't working, but I am not going to sit and wait for it to pop up. So, oh, there it is. All right, so for the year, man, all right, let's see. Yeah, it's just stalling there, so I'm not going to hang on that. I'll bypass that and look at the last couple of weeks. So weekly, he's 4 for 15. I got a home run back-to-back weeks, 5 for 14 2 weeks ago, 6. So the last 3 periods, he's been pretty competitive. If you could get 3 runs and 3 RBIs in a week from a catcher, you would be gaining ground. If they can hit a home run every other week, they on pace to hit about 13 for the season. 2 RBIs and 2 runs a week would be like in the 50s for runs and RBIs. So the RBIs could be a little bit better. Not sure what he did today. Strikeouts really, not that bad. And for the season, he's even got a couple more home runs there. So he's, 7 home runs and 774 at bats. That's pretty good. Strikeouts, 72 strikeouts over 174 at bats isn't ideal. That's really, really high number for somebody striking out well over 33% of the time. So, but he's playing well, trending, and he's probably the best available. I don't think he'll cost a lot of money. Furman got traded to San Diego, but kind of a rotational player. Patrick Bailey, 61% free agent in the main events, just hasn't gotten going. He just has no power this year for some reason. You thought he would be a better catcher coming into the season. He was kind of a back-end catcher too. Pedro Pages, Contreras got a little banged up, might have increased his playing time, and Contreras, was playing first base or whatever, but it's probably created a DH opportunity for him. And so as far as games, he's got 2, 4, 6. He got a 7-game hitting streak. He's got 3 home runs over that stretch. So he's trending better as far as playing time. And I'm going to just see if this RotoWire thing is going to drag or is going to work. So yeah, it's working a little bit better now. So go take a look at St. Louis to make sure I'm catching up on this information, and I'm kind of should know this in advance to help you. So Contreras is day to day. Herrera's been playing the DH a little bit more, and so the playing time is there for him to mix a little bit with Pozo. So trending higher, and he does have power. So I would think he would be in that mid range if you need a second catcher. A few dollars, 74% owned, hitting some home runs. So I would think that maybe the 8 to 15 range, depending on how much league money. And if you really have a problem, obviously if you have $300 or so, you can kind of invest as much as you want if you believe in him for the rest of the year. But it'll still be a rotational thing. Carlos Nevarez for Red Sox kind of really struggled a little bit there, had an injury, missed some playing time, got dropped in 30% of leagues, came back, hit a 3-run home run at the beginning of the week. But I think so 12th. Yeah, so beginning of the week. But after that, he's only played one other game. Not sure he was in the lineup in tonight's game, but his playing time isn't there. But you can see, like before that, 0 for 2, no at bats, 0 for 4, 0 for 3, 0 for 3. So even though he hit a home run, he's not out of the woods, but he has been pretty productive when he's at the plate. I think people by name and see his season stats will maybe pay a little bit more there, but not much. Joey Bart hit a home run this week, and he's been pretty much a dog. But if you want to take a shot for a $1 catcher, he could probably, be worth a flyer. But I don't really see anybody else that stands out at catcher, at the first catcher position based on playing time. But I'll sort by percentage owned just to see if there's somebody that's higher owned that's getting more at bats. So there's just really not David Fry, nothing. Yeah, so that's about it for catcher. There's 2 or 3 options, and the Arizona catcher. I'm gonna just bring him up. I don't know, Del Castillo. He had a pretty good week. I just want to see. Yeah, he's 91% owned, and he had a 3-run home run. If he was a free agent this week, I would kind of make a move for him. There's a few leagues there. I just think that I have old Hoppy on some of my teams, and he's kind of been a dog. And this guy maybe not get enough playing time before this week, but playing more. But he potentially could hit for average. He has power, and he gives 3 categories. And maybe I should have addressed my second catcher, who was supposed to be my first catcher, with somebody else that had a little higher ceiling and maybe help him bat an average. But a little late there. But in 12-team leagues, you're going to have the ability to do that. But a week late on this stuff, or if you don't get your head wrapped around the situation, what's going on, you're kind of trailing in the information. Because if you're a week ahead, the players are cheaper. If they do well and put up some stats, they're going to cost more money. Josh Naylor, 75%. Let's see, we're going to sort these by at bats. Sorry about that. So at bats. Just Josh Bell, 93% owned, few leagues, hit a home run, nothing special. As far as I know, a lot of people were picking up Liam Hicks from Miami and potentially playing him because of at bats, but he's a 35% owned. I don't think really he's a player that I consider as a long-term. I guess he's in the catcher's pool, and I should have talked about him, but Augustin Ramirez is a guy that plays some DH, but for the year, Hicks has got 4 home runs, 36 RBIs. The approach is all right. In the minors, hit 260, not much power. I guess he give you some RBIs, but I really think that you get the playing time, but there's a mini burst there, but there's just not enough juice in his bat. So most of the time, you're buying somebody for batting average or home runs, RBIs, and the RBIs look okay for his number of bats, but the power is really kind of short there, and he is really a guy jumping from Double-A to the majors, and he was at Double-A 3 consecutive years. So really not a player that I view as I would want to be kind of chasing down. And I would, if I was playing him at first base or corner or DH, it would be a bad investment there. Dominic Smith played a little bit better, not a good player as far as past his prime. Miguel Vargas, he had a oblique injury, got dropped in a lot of leagues. Came back, only missed it like 10 days, 61% owned. He hasn't really done that much since coming back. He is 3 for 14 for the week. And somebody actually brought him up this week. I was talking to Steve Fiore, my friend of mine that's in one of my main leagues, and he was comparing these players that get drafted later, kind of big name players. And like Vargas, has more runs than some good players. But, last two games, 3 for 8. He was out for 11 days, maybe 10 games. But for the year, he's got 58 home runs. He's on the pace for 70, 13 home runs. You'd like to see a little bit more, maybe a 15, 16, maybe 17 home run hitter, maybe had a chance at 60 RBIs, which isn't enough, and a few steals. Batting average is a little behind, but takes enough walks. Strikeouts aren't that bad. So it's in line. He potentially get hot. I have him on a lot of teams, but unfortunately, he's not a difference maker. He's a back-end player that can contribute in 4 categories, and potentially his batting average could move up a little bit. But he's a player that you would most likely be looking to play at the back end of the outfield. First base or third base is not ideal. At corner or DH is somebody can get away with if he was being productive, but he's not his profile isn't high enough for especially in a 15-team league to do something. And then 12-teamers, he's probably dropped a lot. Let's say Talese, Dubon, nothing there. Ty France had a big game last week, but not much. I know Paul Goldspit missed some time with some injury, but he's okay. But he's not a free agent. Carlos Santana. This guy, Troy Johnson, he had a home run, stole a base. I just need to look him up in Miami because if you don't click that extra thing, extra extra click on a player when they get a little bit at bats. You're kind of missing the boat here. So he's listed on the depth chart at number 1, 28 years old, for RotoWire, listed on the depth chart. It's been at AAA over the past 4 seasons in some part. Hitting 250 this year with 68 strikeouts, 26 walks. Not a great approach, but not a bad one. But he does have 30 stolen bases for a guy that's going to qualify at first base or corner or DH. So that's kind of an advantage if you are trying to make up ground and stolen bases, and if he's going to be in the lineup every day. So he's at 12 home runs over 316 at bats, probably projects to maybe 18 with 500 and something, maybe a little bit higher. Recently, I don't know why it doesn't have his minor leagues. That's a pet peeve of mine for here. Like, this player got called up, and he hasn't been in the lineup every day. He's been kicking around in August, so he's not got enough playing time, and I don't have the direct line to see if he was getting hot in the minors, and that should be here on this player. For some reason, sometimes at RotoWire, this stuff doesn't show up, which is a flaw in their game, because especially where somebody is obviously played 84 games in the minors, but has a little bit of speed. Playing time not ideal. Doesn't have a really impact power, but they don't really have a standout option. Obviously, they can put Hicks there and mix somebody else at first base. I won't even go. I was going to say talk about some minor league player, but that doesn't really matter. I'm digging too deep this time of the year. You're looking for somebody playing and getting at bats, and I just want to make sure I don't miss. All right, so yeah, I guess Caglione, sorry. Jock Caglione, he played a little bit in minors. He should be back up, I would think. And I guess I'll look at Encarnacion Strand, because he potentially could be back. But the structure of that team has changed a lot, and I don't think that he is going to get the opportunity, and he is going to underachieve. And I think that my prop bets that I put out before the season, there was only 4 of them. Vinny Pasquantino over a half stolen base. He is in the books, and he already has a stolen base. And then I think Albies needs one more steal to get over 11.5, and Bellinger is already in the bank with the home runs. So 3 for 4. Of course, I didn't bet it because cash flow or whatever. And so let's see, Angeloni. So he's he's got 4 games in the minors. He's been pretty productive. Let's see here. I just got to get rid of this thing just to see a good view on that's on the bottom here. 8 for 16, 5 runs, 1 home run, 2 RBIs, only 1 strikeout. I would imagine he is back at the beginning of next week, and hopefully, you were hoping that he can give a Nick Kurtz run at some point in September and help move up the standings. He doesn't have to get like that on fire with a big 400 home run game, but contribute, show that you belong in the majors, and help some fantasy teams. As far as Encarnacion Strand, I had been tracking him. They don't even have him listed as a prospect anymore, so I just have to type it in here. Encarnacion Strand. He had a couple, like back-to-back games like last week. I had looked him up and was doing okay, but he just really wasn't doing enough. So he had over here, he had a home run, and he had a little 5-game hitting streak, but sat one game 0 for 0 for, just really not much to, move the needle to gravitate toward him. And he hasn't done enough majors. But, same thing when you're trying to look for power and you got to dig, behind every little nook and cranny trying to help your team in September. And, possibly could be missing somebody when I'm going down that list. But, so not much, there at first base. Lockyer played a little bit better. So let's see. At second base. Second base is a place where you kind of want, can fix some stolen bases. You're looking for somebody that potentially is going to get more at bats and maybe even give you like a balanced skill set of some home runs. Finding somebody that's going to give you a lot of power at second base probably isn't going to happen this time of year. But most of these players are just not. I guess. Brian Raccio did a little bit better this week, but he's still hitting the bottom of the lineup for Cleveland. Just look at his game. So he had a home run, a couple of RBIs, got a hit or more in 3, 4, 6, 7 out of his last 8 games. And if you go back here, that's another 5. So it's 12 out of his last 14, but he doesn't have any, defining stats, and he'll chip in a few steals. Thought he was a better player. He could chip in if you're getting stuck. If you go to, the weekly thing, 6 for 24 is okay. 7 for 19, good and bad and average. 6 for 22. So over the most part, for the last month, he's been okay. He did have a little burst in RBIs over here. So 14 RBIs over the last month. That's above par what you're looking for, that, especially where he's hitting in the lineup. And he did give 1 home run, 3 steals. So overall, it's a little bit behind what you're looking for, but as a replacement player in a 15-team league, you might be able to survive a little bit with him. And he is a free agent in a lot of leagues. Let's see. I know, Gabriel Arias, has talked about him before, but he's just a streaky guy that he'll have a couple of good weeks and then disappears. So the last 2 weeks are very good for him as far as home runs and RBIs. 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, over 37 at bats. Unfortunately, he struck out 17 times and he only has 5 hits. So I'm sorry, 7 hits, and he's got 5 runs. But he has got playing time over the last couple of weeks. This week's a little trail in the last 2 weeks, and he does have a couple of steals. But overall, he's a guy that could, look like he's going to help you for a couple of weeks, and then the next week he gets 6 at bats, 8 at bats, and really doesn't do anything. Mead hasn't really got anything special, and then Edward Julian hit a home run this week. He's a guy a few years back he thought he would be a little better player. He had 16 home runs and 37 RBIs over 338 at bats in 2023, and then just kind of trailed backwards. His strikeout rate just got out of hand and just hasn't really kind of corrected enough, strikes out too much. So not a lot there. Gimenez came back off the DL, hasn't done much. They did put Koss in the starting lineup for San Francisco when Chapman went on the DL. He's got 4 for 11 this week. Last week he was 2 for 7, so that's 6 for 18, 333, 3 runs, 5 RBIs, 1 home run. So let me just see where he is at for what he was doing in the minors, and I would think that Chapman is out for a little bit of time. And San Francisco is just they traded for Devers and get rid of Harrison, and Birdsong went south, and that team just really hasn't really hasn't gelled and has been disappointing, because the dumbass that I am, I bet a parlay of Tampa Bay and San Francisco in the World Series, $250 to win $70,000. That is like lighting money on fire. Let's see here, Koss. So Schmidt's day to day, he would get playing time, but he could play second base. Looks like Tyler Fitzgerald. Let me just check Tyler Fitzgerald, because if they called him back up, this week, I want to see what he did in the minors. He was hitting 260. Let's see, over the last 12 games, he was 10 for 50. That's 200. That's not much. 17 strikeouts, no steals, and so he wasn't really doing much in the last 12 games. So he was a helpful player at the end of last year, and streaky power and gave stolen bases. So he could get some more playing time, but he isn't playing well at the top right now. And there's no sign of him, showing anything in the minors. So as far as Koss, he is a little older. He's going to be 20. He's 27 years old. Looks like he was injured this year a little bit. So last year, early in his career, he had showed a little bit of power, a little balanced skill set. Just kind of wandered his way and just didn't get enough at bats. AAA this year is 8 for 27, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 3 for 17 in the majors. Not strikeouts probably okay. 1 out of 4 strikeouts for 25% for the strikeout rate. Doesn't take a lot of walks. Got a 2-game hitting streak with going into today, but and I guess let me just look at it. He's playing a little bit better. He must have been out for 5 or 6 weeks between June and July with some injury, and then he had a hit in 5 consecutive games. So that guy's a dollar player, and maybe if you got the San Francisco Chapman, you're just looking for a replacement, but there's not a lot of excitement chasing him down, and he's probably a better flyer for second base than playing him at shorts. I guess shortstop probably could be all right. Nick Lofton came off the DL, doesn't get enough at bats. And Dubon, Masari, Marcio Dubon has got some more playing time, but he's actually kind of phasing his way out. Now, for somebody that's looking for steals, if Jose Caballero is out there. I mean, he hasn't played much for since I think he's on the Yankees now, but he is a guy that played yesterday and had 2 or 3 steals, and he had some hits, and he's like that base stealer in waiting. And if something happens and he's going to get more playing time, he can help you move up the standings. So let's see here. Zach Geloff. Let me see if he is doing anything in the minors. I thought a couple weeks ago that he was trending a little bit higher, but let's see here. Let's see here. So he's sitting 248 with 9 home runs, 10 steals over 149 at bats. So that projects well for a full season. He's got a 3-game hitting streak. Yeah, there's a flyer there. If you're looking for somebody to fill it in, he's got a 3-game hitting streak at AAA, and it's not so much a hitting streak. So he's 5 for 11 with 5 runs, but he has 4 home runs over that period with 6 RBIs, 3 walks, 1 strikeout, 2 stolen bases. So this is a type of player that could surprise down the stretch and get a little more playing time. Has a balanced skill set. You can see in 2024 he had 17 home runs, 25 RBIs, struck out a ton, 188 over 547 at bats. Strikeout rate at AAA this year is a lot better. He got a little bit of playing time in the majors, but strikeouts were still a problem. 13 over 28 plate appearances. But when you're trying to fill in a spot, a middle infielder, and you're looking for talent, he is a guy that potentially could, give it a little burst down the stretch. And we look it over at the A's, so he could play out at third base. Muncy, Harris, nothing really crazy. And I know Harris is playing a little recently. I mean, Jacob Williams will be back. But Harris, 27-year-old guy, hit 282 in the minors, decent approach, 12 home runs, 37 at bats. 12 home runs, 39 RBI, 7 steals over 216 at bats. The numbers look okay, but I think Geloff is a guy that potentially could surprise. And like I said, if you're chasing and you got a buy and hold spot and you want to put him in, and it's going to cost you $1 or $2, I think that's a reasonable swing this week just based on his direction. And that's about it for the second baseman. Just really and then my Brooks Baldwin guy just really hasn't materialized. Some guys coming off the DL quicker than expected, and just really didn't hit a home run, stole a base in a week, and but down the road he is going to help somebody, and he has probably hurt me. So if I have him on a team, he probably got like a parallel move and moving for Geloff and take a shot that he gets called up if I need to have that kind of issue. And we switch over to shortstop, and I know let's see here, Thomas Sagisi played a little bit better. The production's just not there yet. The last 2 weeks, hit 10 for 35 with 5 runs, 11 strikeouts, no walks. Just really isn't there. But he was in the minors. He was a guy that could potentially hit for 300 and do some stuff. They still have that top prospect for St. Louis. I would think that he would get called up in September, and he could be helpful for some fantasy teams. But I'll just show his minor league stats to you, just to give you a decent feel. Like 2024, 20 home runs, 67 RBIs, 9 steals, hit 253. This year he was hitting 161 at bats, 5 home runs, 21 RBIs, 5 steals, hitting 311. And earlier in his career, he got a 308, 381, 319, 331. So there was some batting average, a little bit of power, but he's a decent player. Hasn't found his rhythm as being those kind of stats of home runs or steals. Been a little bit better recently. We're ahead of him in my NL league just because I don't have a second baseman, but it's 6-game hitting streak, 0 for 4 in the last 2 with strikeouts. But again, he is only probably a placeover. I don't know why they don't just call up their top prospect, shortstop, and they can probably get him in some way. And he is JJ Weatherholt, and he continues well. He's got 9 home runs at AAA over 114 plate appearances, 95 at bats. So 9 home runs over 95 at bats with 24 runs, 17 home runs, 3 steals, 15 walks, 18 strikeouts. That's a good number. Hit 295, fading a little bit in the batting average, is a little higher coming into the week, but he did pretty good as well at Double-A this season and showed a little bit more stolen bases. So I would think that he'd get called up soon. Over his last 4 games, he's got a 4-game hitting streak with 5 runs, 3 home runs, some RBIs, 4 RBIs, and he has 1 stolen base. So he is the player that you want to kind of track on that team if he does get called up in September, and you have Vidal as in our, the high stakes market. We can't get that type of player until he gets called up. But regular leagues, you might be a little mine ahead, and I think that he will. I have to believe that they call him up. I'll do Paul DeJong when I get to third base because there's probably less options there. So DeJong, Cole hasn't really done it for Seattle. Thought he would get a little bit of spark, just really hasn't happened. Let's go down there. Talked about Tyler Fitzgerald. It's weird if you need a base steal. This Tolbert guy just doesn't play at all, but he steals bases. He's got 5 at bats this week, 2 steals. He got no at bats last week, stole 3 bases. The week before he had 4 at bats, 1 steal. The week before 6 at bats. So he gives you that steal category, and he even hit a home run in one of those weeks, and he's got some RBI. So like if he could play a little bit, he might be able to help you. But for the season, he just doesn't have enough. 17 stolen bases over 30 at bats, and would need some injuries and something to break well for him. Looks like Ritter came off the DL for Colorado. He's 2 for 7 this week. He had missed last 3 scoring periods. A guy that really got in a hot streak earlier in the year. Started to look like he was turning the corner in the minors. I'm not in the minors with Colorado after hot start in the minors. So he's back. He has a pretty good resume this year, and I guess I'll have to show that because I'm talking to him about him. But if he's up, hasn't done well, but I think that he potentially, especially if you catch him at home, you could stick him in your lineup or something. Let's see. He's back at second base, and so at minor leagues this year, at AAA, he had 303 over 218 bats with 45 runs, 16 home runs, 50 RBIs, and he had like this awesome hitting streak and stuff like that. So he could be sneaky, especially if he has no at bats, and if you're looking for a middle infielder, and he will fly under the radar a little bit. So dollar flyer. Tolbert's got the stolen bases and lack of playing time, and I don't think there's really anybody else unless there's a name. I'm hearing a bunch of dogs bark upstairs. So let's see. We're over to third base. Karros for Colorado. I got to look him up. He's got 5, few at bats this week, and it's just, same thing. You got to look at these players and make sure you stay in tune with it when they get called out. So Karros is listed as on the top of the depth chart at RotoWire for third base. He's played at the rookie complex for Colorado for a few games early in the year, but the last he played at Double-A and Triple-A, 6 home runs, 25 RBIs, 7 home runs, over 250 at bats. So maybe a 10, 15 player, but he did hit for a decent average. He's had 31 at bats in the majors, 9 hits, 3 RBIs. Approach is okay. Potentially, there's a little bit more power. In 2024, he had 15 home runs, 78 RBIs, 12 steals, and 311. So really don't have a good scouting report. I have all the Baseball America scouting report. So I would like this type of player, I would like to read his scouting report to kind of get a feel what kind of profile it is. But it looks like he could help an average, and that's not a bad thing. And he's qualified at third base, which if he's not giving enough power, that's not ideal. And looks like he's not qualifying or anything. Let me just check his eligibility, see what they're doing. Yeah, all third base. So pretty much a guy that will, you take a flyer on and playing at home, maybe you catch a hot streak, and he could help an average. And if you got a lot of power, then maybe you can kind of put him in, and we'll see if he can do somewhere. He's a young player. Miguel Andujar is going to be a pretty popular guy the last couple of weeks. He was pretty identifiable a couple of weeks ago after his trade, and I think this is the third waiver period where he's kind of had success. He's the thing with him is like he only had 3 home runs over his first bunch of 200 and some at bats, but he's got 6 home runs over the last 4 weeks. He's hitting the middle of the Cincinnati's lineup. He has been helpful. He hit home runs for Yankees that one particular year. It showed was an asset in batting average. So he's not a big name, but best available athlete, and I think that he will probably cost a little bit more. But it's ultimately, I can't predict the prices as well this type of year, because I could have $50 and you could have 300. So you spend 30 or $40 and, that might not be a must-have guy, but, so I would think that, 15 to 30 would do it. And it's obviously ultimately team need, and he does qualify at outfield and third base. So I think that he's interesting. Caleb Durbin has been cut in 28% of teams. And if you can get any Milwaukee Brewer hitters, I would probably take him right about now. So over the past week, had a home run with 4 hits over 17 at-bats. Not outstanding. Really not running enough. He's a guy that you thought potentially if he got every day at-bats, you thought he would be a guy that could steal 30-something plus bases and maybe, get double-digit home runs and stuff like that. But he's getting enough playing time in general. If he plays a little bit better, he'll get a little bit more. But for the year, For the year, he's hitting 256. Strikeouts and walk ratio is pretty good. 10 steals, 6 home runs, 40 RBIs. Just not a difference maker. But he's a guy that you're going to take a beating at third base. But second base, I think the profile works, especially if he could run a little bit more and sneak in a couple of weeks with some home runs. Nacho Alvarez is actually with Riley out, he's got more playing time, and actually he's looked a little better over his last couple of games. Actually, I should say that he's only had one good game. Actually, probably looking at it today, so he must have did something today. Maybe not though. These games, when you look at the box scores, they get pushed all together. But 3 for 5 yesterday with 2 runs and RBI. Still no home runs. Young player, hasn't really shown much. More of a National League only player at this point. And Paul DeJong is the one I want to get to. Mentioned him a couple of weeks ago, and so got 4 home runs over the last 3 weeks. 5 for 16 2 weeks ago, 5 for 15. So he's hitting over 300 the last 2 weeks with 5 runs, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs. Strikeouts have really improved. He's usually a guy that kind of strikes a little bit more. Only had 4 strikeouts over the last 2 periods, and he even stole a base. He looked like he was earlier in his career. He was like a guy that could hit 30 home runs if he could get 550 at bats. Well, it took him a while, but in 2019 he finally got over 500 at bats for one time. He did hit 30 home runs. He only stole 9 bases, but even the strikeout rate over there wasn't 149 over 583 at bats isn't that bad, but always got the batting average risk. So Washington's been hitting him a little high in the lineup, and I think that he could be helpful for teams that are looking for a little bit of power. And he is a free agent in 96% of leagues, and I know he doesn't carry enough big name draw. Brian Hayes still sits out there in a few leagues. Looked like he played a little bit better. He had a home run yesterday. He's got 2 in the last 3 waiver periods for Cincinnati. He's got 2 home runs, 5 runs, 5 RBIs. So not quite what you're looking for. You'd like to see, maybe for over that period of 6, probably more than that, like 7 or 8 runs, 7 or 8 RBIs, but hitting down the lineup. But he's not stealing bases, and I think that the Cincinnati, they did run a lot, so he's really going to have to chip in a little bit. So, but jockeyed around, hasn't caught fire, not a guy that you're going to fight for. Brett Beatty has played a little bit better recently. He's a free agent in some leagues. So this week, 6 for 13, a home run, 3 runs, 2 RBIs. Last week he had a home run. He's got a home run in 4 of the last waiver periods with some runs, not many RBIs. He has got less than 3 in 2, 4, 6, 7 periods in a row. So, but you might catch a home run out of him. The luster for him is kind of left the building a little bit, and he's kind of in a rotational role. Toro, I don't consider him. Juan Moncada has actually been okay and getting in the lineup for the Angels. So this week, 6 for 12, 3 runs, 2 RBIs. He hasn't had a home run since week scoring period week 17s, and he went over 6 weeks. He had 2, 4, 5, 6, 8 home runs over, actually there was a break in between. Sorry about that with injuries, but over 6 scoring periods, he's hit 8 home runs. That was pretty good. But so he hasn't done anything, playing a little better, so he could surprise. And I have him on like a draft masters. I'm not really too motivated to put him in. Strikeout rate's still a little too high, and the batting average has risk. Doesn't really steal any bases, but he was formerly a guy that you thought was a top prospect, and he had one really great season in 2019, which was similar to DeJong. And that's pretty much. I don't think there's Graham Pauley had a home run in one good game this week, but he hasn't been playing enough. Brooks Baldwin, we talked about him. Otto Kemp gets shifted down to the minors. Yeah, and I mentioned the Brett Harris guy a little bit. So, but that's it for options at third base. Kind of thin overall. But there was a little bit more options there than most of these positions from what we're looking for. Dylan Lyle has been playing him in the outfield recently. I think earlier in the year he came up as a third baseman, but decent week this week. 6 for 22 with 3 runs for 1 home run, 3 RBIs. If you could have 10 guys do that in a week, you'd be happy. 11 guys in a week do that. A couple weeks ago, scoring period 19, 7 for 21, 4 RBIs, 4 runs. Only has 1 home run in the last 2, 4, 6 scoring periods. Not enough power. Well, over that same period, he has 3 stolen bases. But he is, like I said, he's getting at bats. Not really productive. For 200 bats, he's just projecting to hit 8 home runs and maybe 12 or 13. He needs to be better than that, but he will probably be relatively cheap because he's not a big name player, and he doesn't jump off the page in any of those counting stats. I'm going to skip Frazier, even though he played a little better. Veteran guy that's just, doesn't really do a lot on the stat sheet. Hernandez for Miami. Last week he did. Yeah, last week he had a good week. Surprised he's in a lot of leagues. As far because he was 7 for 20 with 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. You would think that he would get picked up a little bit, and he even has 4 scoring periods away. He had another 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. So you just look at him for a second. So he is he's a 67% owned. So he's a free agent, 37% of leagues for Miami. Just look at his minor league stats for a second here, just to see what what he brings to the table. So this year looks like he missed some time. He had 163 at bats, 9 home runs, 21 RBI, 6 steals. So that's guy potentially be that's a 27-18 player, but hitting 220. Had some decent profile in a couple of years. So he could 20 home runs, double-digit steals, batting average, a little bit of risk, strikeout rate a little bit high. Yeah, it's a little bit higher in AAA. So there's some risk there, but he is probably a guy that could be a little bit streaky. But he's been successful 2 of the last 4 weeks. So probably a guy you could miss time easily. Got him in your lineup. Doesn't do anything. You bench him, and then he has a good game. Dominic Canzoni just hasn't got it. I got him in my lineup due to injuries. Took him out, but he's getting hits over the last 3 weeks. But he's just done not enough production. Really had showed a lot of power, more power on the minors. Just hasn't got rolling. I still think he might be helpful at some point in the week. Austin Martin has been batting leadoff a few times for the Twins, but really just doesn't do enough to move the needle. Josh Lowe, I left a little bleak injury. Looks like it's relatively minor. But I'm not sure. He's not a lineup. He didn't play yesterday. He's not in the lineup today. So we'll see what happens over there. Colby Thomas, there you go. He's the guy that most people will be looking for. He's been up for, this is the third, actually the 4th free agent period he's been up there. So the All-Star break, they must have sent him around briefly. But he went 0 for 3, 3 for 12 with a home run, 4 RBIs. Last week, he didn't really get picked up. It looks like he was a free agent. Let me just click up and just. So Thomas, so he's a free agent in every league, and he did have a good profile at AAA this year. So this week, 7 for 14, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, hit in the middle of the lineup for the A's. And I will bring you to his minor league stats because I've written about this guy multiple times for Fantasy on I this year when I was doing the minor league players. Let's see, Thomas got in a hot streak. Strikeout rate was a little too high, but you can see here between AAA and AAA. The AAA over the last 2 years. I guess I was trying to get to. In the last 2 years at AAA is over 608 at bats. He's got 35 home runs, 119 RBIs, 10 steals. Strikeout rate this year 101 over 378. Plate appearances is much better than 95 over 314 last year. Hit 295 this year, 272 last year. His batting average has been okay. And sometimes these guys that strike out a lot, when they put the ball in play, they hit for a lot higher contact batting average, which offsets their strikeout rate. And I think that he probably falls in that range, which I don't really track that data in season, but I do look at it, in the off season when I'm looking at a skill set. Riding a 4-game hitting streak. He's got 5 runs. He's got 7 hits over 14 at bats. All right, I said that, 2 home runs. Yeah, so he's a player that, last week you could have got him for $1. Now there's, he's, standing out after a big week, and everybody's going to see him, and we'll see what happens there. But I would think that if you need a run at somebody, he would be a player that would be helpful. But they could, if he doesn't perform, they could rotate somebody in bat, and he'll lose playing time. I'm going to skip this for a second. So at the end of the first page, there's not much, but I know that I had written about Devers for Baltimore. Got called up on Saturday, 1 for 5 in his first game. But this is a guy that, I don't know what he has done today because I'm looking at this, but if he can sneak through the cracks this week, he should be able to play somewhere in this outfield, even with Cowser coming back. But he had a really nice profile here at AAA. He's was hitting 304 over 342 at bats, 78 runs, really good number, 18 home runs, 51 RBIs, 23 steals, and 68 walks. That's like a top of the order type of guy. 76 strikeouts, not bad. Really good approach. And really struggled a little bit the year before as far as batting average, but he still had 15 home runs, 31 stolen bases, which you could say that was Cedric Mullins right there type of thing. But his bat was really coming on here. You could see, I'm going to go back up a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit further back. Let's just go to middle of June. So he was last 41 games at AAA. He hit 305 or 151 at bats with 13 home runs, 6 steals, 37 walks, 32 strikeouts. So he had more walks than strikeouts. So he is the type of player that you're looking for somebody to run, to be a kind of a balanced player. If he can handle major league pitching and kind of hit the ground run a little bit, he should be a decent asset. I'm not sure that, this doesn't always translate. How many times we pick up young players this year and they just haven't done it. And I'm just looking at that Jeremiah Jackson just because they know he played really well. And I just wanted to look at him up because I was on the Baltimore page and I didn't really talk about him, but it wasn't enough to stand out for me to make a run at him. Let's see here. So let's switch this back and we'll go to the second page of outfielders because it, this guys that were playing less. Austin Hayes, nothing. Dane Myers has been fading. Haskell really hasn't done it for Washington, kind of a guy that could be a kind of a balanced player. O'Hearn, nothing. Jackson, no. Jacob Young, a few steals, nothing there. Alex Call, not getting enough playing time for the Dodgers. Let's just look up this guy. Should know these players cold, but I mean, when you're crossing over to football and you're taking days off, you're following box scores, but you're not really doing enough to catch everything. You're seeing them, you follow the new player news and you follow box scores, so you know what's going on. But if you don't have a player on your team, it's easy to get tripped out and miss something happen. So 22 years old this year, had 243 at bats at AAA, hit 284, 13 home runs, 39 RBIs, 23 walks. Probably a little better than league average, and strikeouts were reasonable. So yeah, I mean, I think that playing in Colorado, it looks like he could handle himself. Really hasn't popped yet, and he's not getting in. Let me just get his playing time over here. Yeah, he's not getting enough playing time where you can consider him as somebody to pick up. And if you're not picking him up, if you're not picking him up to play him, he's not really worth chasing. Evan Carter, 54% owned, 46% free agent, came off the DL after missing some back issues. So he missed 11 days, had some sort of shot. Is going to sit against lefties, but he came back on the 13th, missed one game, but he's got coming into today, he's got a 3-game hitting streak, 4 for his last 8 with 2 runs, an RBI, and a stolen base. And when you look at his season stats, it's not really that bad considering, if he played 550 at bats. So he's got 176 at bats. So if you triple that, it's 528. He'd have 87 runs, 12 home runs, 66 RBIs, 39 stolen base. That's a pretty good combination of players that won't draw attention into fantasy teams, but he's hitting 250, so it's not that bad. And he's a high upside 22-year-old guy, and he played, they hit him third in the World Series a couple of years ago. So, it slumped a little bit. He had all of his home runs from week 12 to week 7, and he missed some time. And I think he missed some time there, but he hasn't hit a home run for a while, hasn't had a big weekend for a while. Not going to draw a lot of interest, but you saw right here, if you're looking for steals, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1. He has that type of profile. He even had 2 back here, and he has power. So he's a nice balanced player that potentially could be there. And if you got to put him in your lineup, and if you got 2 lefties, you maybe want to sit him. But if you got 2 righties, you can potentially play him. I had him on lost to rosters, and I think I cut him in more of the 12-team leagues because I had 3 outfield injuries, and 2 Arenado and Baum got hurt. I just got you got to catch and release some of these players, and unfortunately I had to let them go. I'm not sure if I had him in this team, but I don't he still has name value, but I don't think people are really kind of excited about it. So I still think that he'll be at the low end of the free agent pool as far as investment wise. But if I had a chance between Dylan Beavers and him, I would take him because he's a little more proven. Even though Beavers looks like he's got a little better profile right now, and not that Carter won't get there. He's just got to get over those injuries. I know that Chicago called him up, but not really somebody that stands out. So rather than Colton Cowser came back off the DL, I'm just looking for names that and it's hard. You see all this from here to here. There's all these DL players, and it's sometimes you lose track of them, and that's where you can kind of get beat. And I have favorites of players that I track, so that I'm looking for, like Ruiz. Down here, he's still 11% owned, and I might own him in a couple of teams I need to make up stolen bases. But I usually have a weekly check-in to see what he's doing, because I think Conforto's not doing anything, and if they had an injury and he got in the start of the lineup, I think he's a guy that potentially could be helpful in stolen bases and kind of a balanced skill set. So I'll just see where he's at. Can't predict that they're going to get him in the lineup for the Dodgers, but in the Moneyball era, from the fantasy perspective, this guy offers more value than he's getting credit for. And look at, he's been back down to the minors since the 8th. He has a hit in every. He has a hit in every game. No, he doesn't. He missed one game. But you could go. I'm going to go back to July 1st. He was up for 5 or 6 weeks. They really didn't give him anything. So he's last 9 games in the minors, 12 for 33, 12 runs, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, and he has 7 steals. Right there shows you that there's a lot of potential there. He's got 13 walks, 8 strikeouts. How can this guy not get in the Dodgers lineup? You're wheeling out this Conforto that I'm going to just because I want to pick on him, and that call's not that great. It's over. Conforto's not really good. Just get him out of your lineup. What does he get? 2 games. He's got 3 out of his last 6, but what did he do for the last? Let's just look at August, and he was hitting under 200. Like, just why is he even there? He's 6 for 36, no home runs, 12 strikeouts, hitting 167. Like, come on, Dodgers. What the hell are you doing? Your team's not underachieving. You got a dynamic player that can do some stuff, action on the base paths, put pressure on the other teams. Put him in your lineup. It's just like, I don't get it. But that's me. That's my pet peeve. But at some point, maybe I should call the Dodgers front office. But that's but like that type of player, if he plays the last 2 weeks of the season in the majors and you're coming off the pace, he could steal 4 or 5 bases in a week and he could be helpful. But can you hold him that long and waste a spot? But it depends on where your standings are and what you're looking for. So, but that's about it for the hitters. And I guess sometimes I should look at the utility only, because I know that Minnesota player that got called up a couple weeks ago. He was it was utility only, and I kind of missed him, at least talking about him and stuff like that. So I'd rather skip this part of it, that version of it. And I apologize last week. I think I had this on show the pitchers for week 818, and I'm talking about it last week and being a putz, so I was giving bad information. So Arizona, same cast of characters overall. This Chris Matt guy's really kind of a bullpen guy, and so I don't think that's really a value. So they have kind of a placeholder. Looks like they extended some innings in the minors, but he just put him. Let me see if he's show minors. I just want him sometimes get a look. So 404, nothing really. I'm not looking for that guy, and that's a speculation call up anyways. Lopez from Athletics been pretty good. They pitched Morales 5 innings or maybe 6 innings. I didn't see the final box score for last night. I went to bed early. So he had 5 innings. He had 5 strikeouts. He gave up 1 hit, 5 runs, 2 walks. It looked like he was a better player. Walks were a little too high in here. But the year before at Double-A this season, he was 2.98 ERA, 1.02 WHIP. So I think he has some talent. Not sure, and we'll get some strikeouts, but there'll be a little bit a risk in the WHIP anyways, because you can say those 8 walks. So I think he's okay, and maybe just pick him up for a week and see what you get out of him. Not much else there. Waltrip for the Braves have been really, really good since he's been called up, and I missed the boat. I probably got him. I got him in a couple of draft masters, and I had him in my lineup, but he's been surprisingly good over his 3 starts in the majors. But sometimes the Braves just called the pitchers, and they just get better. They pitch better in the majors than they do in the minors. Because look at this, he's got 3 starts in the majors, or 3 games in the majors, 2 of them starts, but 1.02 ERA, 0.79 WHIP, 17 strikeouts over 17.2 innings, 2/3 innings, and in the AAA this year, 4.42 ERA, 1.48 WHIP, 50 walks, which is a kind of a bad number, but sometimes talent outweighs outweighs their numbers, and they outperform. But usually that type of numbers with all those walks in the minors is going to catch them, but hasn't caught Trevor Rogers over here. Povich pitching long relief. Yesterday had a pretty good game as far as strikeouts. 10 guys got 10 strikeouts coming off the bench. We end up pitching 5 innings, but he's a guy, if you're chasing strikeouts, that you should be thinking about. Let me see what his percentage zone is, as far as easier just to track it. Going down Povich, he's at 14% on. So he's the type of guy that if you need to make up strikeouts and wins, he would be a perfect guy at this time of the year. Red Sox still about the same. Kyle Harrison, I mentioned him in the waiver wire report that I did for Fantasy on SI. Let me see if Harrison is on here. Pitched last two games. He has. I think he already pitched this week. So, but he's pitched 10 shutout innings. And if you're going to be looking for him, he is. He's probably time to get him. Like he could be up pretty soon, I would think, if he continues to. Yeah. So last 2 games, he pitched 10 shutout innings. Only gave up 3 hits. Walks were a little high at 7 walks, but he had 15 strikeouts. So it looks like he's getting a little more comfortable. He's been pretty good over his last 6 appearances. Not ideal, like I said. The command's been kind of off. 6 walks in 1 game. He left two games relatively early, but overall he hasn't given up more than 2 runs in a game. And it just projects well. If they're adding the slider there, and you're looking for an upside arm, and he does have talent, but I think he will be helpful for the Red Sox and next year. And I just think May potentially is getting close to his innings cap. They looks like they switch. I saw something somewhere on Twitter where he so throws that sweeper or something like that, and then really kind of dives in. He has really good movement, but his location is strike zone. So they had him switch to like throwing to rely a little bit more on his cutter or something to set up his other pitches, and it worked really, really well in his last game. 6 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts. So to me, like I said, I think he's at the end of the road where he hasn't pitched so many innings, but he did pitch well. But I did cut him in 2 leagues and toss him in the free agent pool. So I got egg on my face, but not that I would have pitched him for sure. Same characters for the Cubs. Cincinnati, not much there as far as free agents. Let's see, we got an open spot for Cleveland. I know Ciccone struggled in his last one. Let's look up and see if this Masick guy actually gets called up. Got a bunch of strikeouts at AAA this year, 119 over 98.2 innings, but 42 walks. So whip's a little bit high. Year before, he pitched 66 innings. The ERA was good, but he pretty much for 15 starts only averaged a little over 4 innings a start. So some strikeout ability if he does truly get called up, but not somebody that you can follow right now. Or I'm not talking about any Colorado pitcher. I don't care who you are. I'm not pitching you. The White Sox, the same thing. I'm not chasing these guys. Only one, Burke, is the one that's kind of, if he had double starts, I'd put him in. The pitcher for Detroit, I'll look him up because I don't know how what he is for his own. Melton. Let's see. Yeah, so he's 25% owned. He hit a spot start last week. Pitched 5 shutout innings, 6 strikeout. 5 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts. He's been pitched pretty good for the year since being called up. 21 strikeouts over 22.1 innings, 15 hits, 4 walks, 3-1 ERA and whip. Grade well for fastballs, pretty good. Just in the minors this year, he didn't pitch a lot of games. Averaged like under 5 innings an appearance. So, but he will get. People are going to take a shot at him. They don't have him lined up to start this week, but it's still, he's kind of a long relief pitcher at this point. In my eyes, I think pitched better yesterday. He looked like he was going in the wrong direction. But if they rest somebody like that, but I don't expect him to get a ton of innings. But he is a player that definitely has talent and upside, and we'll see how he does. Like for a full season. Alexander for Houston is really, to me, overachieved. That really doesn't have the profile to do what he did basically over his last 4 starts for Houston, and who knows what they did. But this guy's got 21 strikeouts over 22.2 innings, giving up only 12 hits, 2 home runs, 6 walks, 1.59 ERA, 0.79 WHIP. But he was pitching in the minors. Let me see. No, he's got the minor stats. So he had pitched for the Athletics, got bombed. He there it is. So he's in the minors. He had ERA was all right in the minors, but he had given up a few walks, like 4.5 walks per 9. So I guess actually it was a little bit better than I thought. Sorry about that. But the year before, when you look at him, 4.42 ERA. But let me just see if I can bring up that. So this year in the minors, he had a 1.69 ERA, 1.23 WHIP, 57 strikeouts over 54 innings. Journeyman pitcher. So I guess it profiles better than I initially looked at it. And then sometimes when you look at these things quick, like when you see this combined stat number for Houston and the A's for him, 18 walks, 40 hits, over 43.2 innings, and 4.74 ERA, 1.33 WHIP. You kind of like don't, look in between the cracks. Did they change something for his profile as far as like a pitch, the usage of his pitch? So to me, he's overachieved, but he is pitching well. And I'm not as much of a micromanager as other people. I did sit Singer this week and a couple teams because he was facing Philadelphia. But like a dumbass, like he's been a lot better pitcher at home this year than on the road. So I should have, taken that bit of information. But I would prefer to pitcher when he's pitching well than rather going with a guy that's kind of pitching poorly and been up and down. Obviously, if it's a proven pitcher that's a good arm and he struggled last outing, I'm going to ride my best arms, and I'm not going to mess around because I am not the genius that everybody else with the pitchers. So Christian Javier got called up last week, and I was really concerned about his command. He pitched 5 innings, gave up 5 base runners, a home run, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts. That was a really good game. I was really concerned about him coming up, because he had pitched at AAA. He had given up 10 walks and had 10 strikeouts over 9.2 innings. He'd only given up 7 hits. So I thought command would be a problem, and that still might be a problem, when he gets a little more length. If he's walking guys, he's not going to make it to the 5th inning, but he has had success. He did have talent before. I'm not going to run and check his velocity, but he is a guy that's going to go a few dollars. I don't think they're going to fight for him, but if you have a little bit of whip risk on your team, he might not be ideal. But if you're chasing wins and you potentially need strikeouts, I think that he kind of fits the profile. Kansas City, nobody really there that I would think that's a free agent. Medeiros for Angels, just need to make sure if I haven't looked up this guy. ERA was all right at AAA this year, 3.39. Whip's kind of high, 1.34. 7 walks, 7 strikeouts since he's been up in the majors. Even a couple of years back, I don't see enough to warrant chasing him down. You might as well just put Detmers in the rotation, get it over it, and see what he can do. Dodgers, nothing much. Snell's been helping. Same thing with Miami, nothing. And Brewers, pretty much same rotation there. They did Mizorowski. I'm probably pronouncing that right, but wrong anyways. But he struggled in his last game, kind of buried teams a little bit. But Woodruff only pitched 4 innings. They hooked him early. Minnesota, they got these they pitched a couple of these weak link guys. I still think Bradley will be up, and Mick Bell should get a chance, but Bell pitched a little bit better. But Bradley gave up 6 runs, no walks, had 6 strikeouts, and like 4 1/3, and gave up a few too many hits. But it wasn't exciting. But if he's still sitting there, you give him a shot. But I think a Bell for is it Mick Bell is pitched better, but he did walk some guys in his last outing. I just want to check him out, make sure, because I'm doing this on memory, and usually I just have wasted information in my head sometimes. But let's see what he did. So he actually pitched. He had a nice game. I didn't see that. Yeah, so he pitched yesterday. So the day before he had walked 4 guys over 4 1/3 innings, 5 strikeouts, and his walks overall have been higher. But 6 innings, gave up 2 runs, 2 hits, 1 home run, no walks, 11 strikeouts. I mean, that could get him to the majors. So potentially, if you're looking for a flyer, this might be the week to get him, because they got 2 weak links and they give him a shot. But he just still, if you look up what he did Philadelphia when he got a chance to start, it wasn't very good. Too many walks, 9 over 25 innings. Strikeouts were okay, 21, but he gave up 7 home runs, and that led to a bad ERA and whip. So, but when we're fishing at the back end of the player pool this late in the season, that's the type of player you want to probably put on your bench, because you could rotate him in and see what happens. But he's the better of the two. I think Bradley's okay too, and I think that they could be serviceable and they give you strikeouts and stuff like that. But I think Bradley might be a little, because he's pitched more in the majors, maybe a little safer. But I'm holding him, and I committed. I switched from May to Bradley, and it might not be the best situation there. McLean got called up for the Mets this week. Had pitched well this season at AA and AAA. Much better at AA at a 1.37 ERA, 1.23 WHIP, 30 strikeouts over 26.1 innings. But combined this year in the minors, 78 hits over 113.2 innings. That's a very good number. 127 strikeouts. That's a good number. 2.61 ERA, 1.13 WHIP. The only thing that's the walks is a little high for 50 over that many innings. And he handled himself well in his major league debut. 8 strikeouts, 4 walks, 2 hits over 5 1/3. So talent-wise and what he's done, the year before he didn't pitch as well at AA. Looks like he's made a progression. Command might get him in a couple of games, but when late in the year, it's either you're more taking the strikeouts and the talent, and then the beaten down veterans that get shifted back into the waiver wire. Not much for the Yankees there. Pretty much the same cast of characters for starters. Same for Philadelphia. They did get Aaron Nola, who struggled, but they also lost Wheeler, so they have the right number of starters, in their rotation, but they're definitely take a hit there. But I don't know how far Wheeler is out. Ashcraft is a guy that I thought somebody asked me about the bullpens this year. I thought he might get at the trade line. I thought he might get there, but he's a guy that pitched well in his last game. He has decent talent, in the minors and has upside. But the last game he pitched 5 innings, gave up 1 run, no walks, 4 strikeouts, and 3 hits. Pretty much, let's just go for the last what's showing on the board. So his last 30 innings, 3.60 ERA, 1.27 WHIP, 27 strikeouts over 30 innings. Only gave up 1 home run. So trending a little bit higher. Even if you go back, the numbers were all right there. So I think he's a decent arm, and they're stretching him out a little bit. I'm not even going to look at Chandler, who people might think get called up. But I mean, if you're looking for a guy that's going to potentially get double starts, the following week they would have, he could line up for doubles if they use what they were. So he at St. Louis, at Boston. So at Boston for that type of arm is kind of risky. Cortez got picked up in some leagues, so he's pretty much the same thing. Sears has been kicked around. I don't even want to look him up. He pissed me off 2 weeks ago. I picked him up for double starts, and he just, struggled. Miller got picked up in a lot of leagues, and he struggled in those last 2 outings ago, and he was a little better in the last one. I'll just look at it just to confirm. Threw 76 pitches in that last game. He gave up 2 runs, 2 hits, 1 home run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts over 4 2/3. But the game before that, he struggled. Still think there's an underlying issue there. I have him on the AL only league, and he absolutely crushed me. And same with Shane Bieber has been a kind of huge disappointment there. San Francisco, there's a couple of players that Tang guy has been terrible. It doesn't belong in the rotation. They probably could flip to somebody. I don't know who they would go to. Verlander looked better. Root came back, and he didn't really pitch well in his last game. This guy's pretty much cooked. Liberatore, he looks like he's just a fading arm. I would get rid of him. I would not pick him up for double starts. I don't care who he's playing. At Miami and at Tampa Bay, probably not the worst. Tampa Bay's park's a little easier, but there's not somebody that stands out. I'm gonna go over here and talk about Tampa. I just think that Boyle just seemed like he just hasn't done it. He hasn't done it in the majors, and he could get pushed back. So if they get pushed back, I think the arm that I would be intrigued to put on my roster if I needed somebody, and I'll probably try to pick him up in the AL only league, is Ian Seymour. He's not like a hard thrower or anything, but he's had 2 years pitching in them at AAA. Made 26 games, 25 starts, 2.51 ERA, 1.14 WHIP, 167 strikeouts over 140 innings. Command's not that bad. He's had 11 games of relief experience in the majors, 1.77 ERA, WHIP's 0.93, 22 strikeouts. It's just like this guy deserves a shot. He was a starter. I know potentially he could fail, but his inning, it might take a couple more outings to stretch him out a little bit, but he's pitching up this year. It wouldn't take that long. They'd push him kind of aggressively, and he might come after a starter. So he's a guy, if I was looking for somebody to, for a starter to maybe use in September, I think he could get there. And, I'm just kind of a guy that I'm putting in the follow category. And if I have room, I'll probably put him on, because in the fantasy baseball, you can never have enough starting pitching. And so, I thought Gray had a chance over here for Texas. Looked better last week at 5 innings and did okay. And he's on the DL and he's out. So nothing really at Texas as far as in the starting rotation. Toronto, Shane Bieber should be back this week for sure. He pitched yesterday in the minors, and let me just see what he did. And I thought he would be here this week. And he threw 7 shutout innings, 6 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts. He has been successful. He will be the new toy of the week next week. Looks like his fastball was 95.5, a little bit higher. But he's a guy that when he was throwing 94, he had to swing and miss stuff, and he was a pretty impressive pitcher. So looks like that's about it. And it's the only other player that you probably want to talk about is Abreu from Houston. Going to get the closing job, and that is a really, for somebody that lands that guy with Hader most likely out for the rest of the season. Probably maybe Houston hopes he pitches in the playoffs, but Abreu's a pretty live arm, pitched pretty well this year, gets strikeouts, will get saves, should be able to handle the job nicely, and he will be the best available reliever this week. And there is 9 bullpens that are still in flux. I think that could go either way, but it's really kind of difficult. But saves are so close, even if you're out of it, you feel like you're 6 or 7 saves behind, but they might not be gaining saves due to the injuries or team structure changes after the trade deadline. And if you pick up 2 or 3 and you get 3 in a week, you kind of back in the game. So it's kind of an interesting category. And sometimes that category determines if you're winning or losing money. So that's all today. A little bit late. Probably not going to get out till 5 o'clock. It's 4:10 here. It just takes about 45 minutes to process this. Appreciate your time. Good luck on the waiver wire, and we'll see you next week.